What's the worst surprise you've ever received? At just 4 years old, I was able to recite a poem in Spanish to my parents because I had an ulterior motive to get the last cookie from the cookie jar. But they just nodded their heads, took the last cookie, and handed it to my 8-year-old brother, all because he had gone to the bathroom by himself for once. This pretty much set the tone for the rest of my relationship with my parents. Growing up, he got the latest gadgets, nicer clothes, and way more attention, whereas I made do with hand-me-downs and started working weekend jobs at 14 to buy things I wanted. But the real shock hit when Jake, now 34, got married 4 years ago. My parents handed him and his wife a staggering $500,000 as their wedding present, which funded their gorgeous home in an affluent neighborhood. Despite feeling a slight sting, I genuinely felt happy for him at the time, especially since my own life was progressing smoothly. I had tucked away decent savings and was dating Alex, aka the love of my life. And fast forward to last summer when Alex proposed. I was absolutely ecstatic. We budgeted around $40,000, which seemed reasonable for the classy yet understated wedding we envisioned. And then once again, my parents shocked me. But this time, it was in a good way, because out of nowhere, they volunteered to cover the entire wedding cost. I felt touched beyond words. For once, it seemed like they were acknowledging me as equally important. At the time, I believed it wasn't worth overthinking. Our wedding day was the calm before the storm, so to speak. My parents delivered heartfelt speeches, danced with us, and appeared sincerely joyful. Then, 2 days after the wedding, I received an email from my father. I expected it to be something about our honeymoon, or even a simple thank you for the wedding invite. But instead, it was a meticulously itemized invoice, basically a receipt, detailing every little expense they'd covered for the wedding. The message was brief and cold. "We expect prompt payment." I stared at my screen, completely stunned. The invoice totaled $39,782.45, accounting for everything down to the last appetizer and flower arrangement. My stomach twisted into knots. Alex discovered me frozen in place, angry tears streaming down my face, curled in a ball. Well, he was absolutely livid. Money wasn't the issue. We could afford it if necessary, but that wasn't the point. My parents approached me, presented it as a gift, and even appeared excited to participate in planning. The more I reflected, the angrier I became. It felt like all the emotional baggage from years of favoritism had all led up to this one cruel act. The next morning, after a sleepless night discussing everything with Alex, I made my decision. I wrote my parents a check for the full amount and enclosed a letter. I avoided confronting them directly, knowing I couldn't maintain emotional composure, and I didn't want this devolving into a shouting match. In my letter, I reminded them that I'd been independent since age 15, paying my own way while watching them lavish everything on Jake. I held nothing back. I talked about their differential treatment and how I never complained, their cruel bait and switch tactic, treating me like a stranger, and finally, I finished it off by letting them know I would decline any future offers of assistance from them, including inheritance. After mailing the check and letter, I blocked their numbers, but then, complete radio silence followed. For days, I heard nothing from them, which only intensified my anger. But after a few days passed, I missed the peace, because I was getting spammed with hate and threats by my own family members. I tried to respond calmly, but then they started harassing me. I couldn't finish the full story in this short video. To watch the rest of the family confrontation, click the link below.